and welcome to Nancy Shapiro.
Huh?
It's all yours.
All right, very good, very good. Well, thank you. I am very happy to be here. Like she said, my name's Nancy, and I just gotta say okay to this. Okay. I am so happy to be here because the Akashic Records is probably my favorite topic these days to talk about. I just have found so much benefit in going into my records each and every day, and I've found that reading the records of other people has been very helpful and beneficial for them as well. And anyway, I'm going to get into what the Akashic Records are and how you can use them, all the different ways, because there's so many different ways to use them and ways to go into it. And if you have any questions, feel free to, put them in the chat box or jump in, because I'm happy to answer any questions that you have tonight or later on. So just a little background about me. I've always been somebody who's leaned into the spiritual. My grandfather used to read my playing cards when I was a kid, his playing cards. He didn't have tarot, but he learned how to read cards from his mother and grandmother. And he shared that with me when I was little. And I just thought that was so amazing because often he would say, "You're going to find money or something good's going to happen." And that was just a highlight of my childhood was going over there and having him read for me. And so I would go to palm readers and things like that. And it wasn't until my mom was sick with colon cancer as a teen that I started going to these readers for more information, right? You wanted to see if she was going to be okay and what was going to happen. And unfortunately, she did pass from that, but it was then that I turned to mediums to connect with her because, I know this is a special night for Sheila. Like we just want to connect with our loved ones. We miss them. It's an awful thing, and that's why I was going to them. But it was sporadic back in the 80s, 90s. It wasn't as common as it is today, and I wasn't running to find them all around. And there were some, scam artist kind of people who I knew weren't to be trusted. And anyway, so I raised my family, became a teacher, and lived my life. And it wasn't until a few years ago, actually, during the pandemic, where um, I was stressed out and looking for something to do and going bananas. And I was trying to find something to keep my mind occupied. I tried crocheting like my grandma, and I couldn't get the knack of that. I tried music playing like my family does, and I just couldn't get the hang of that. And one day I was going for a walk and I heard a podcast, and the woman said something about the Akashic Records, and you can open this, you can get in touch with your guides, and you can get insight right away. And I was like, wait, what? I can do this for myself? Like, how fantastic would that be? So I ran home, opened up my Akashic Records, which is connecting. I'll tell you, I didn't know then what it was, but it's connecting to a higher realm where there's all of your experiences, thoughts, actions, everything is contained in this cosmic database, and you can access it by saying this non-religious prayer, this prayer of intention, and you're in. And I was like, wait, well, I tried it, and it wasn't as easy as that, and it did take a lot of practice and trust and patience and perseverance. And I had a lot of time. And so I just kept at it. And it was a trickle at first, it was a word. And then it became more sentences until years later, here I am, and I can channel the information from that realm. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit more facts about it. Okay, here we go. Um, I don't know why it's not coming up right. All right. Um, Here we go. Okay. So can you see this? Okay, so the Akashic Records basically are this universal cosmic database that you can access with this prayer. And like I said, it takes a lot of trust and being patient with yourself. And all you do is you say this prayer and then you can go in. And so the information that you can access is all about your life. You can ask questions about why am I always stuck in this pattern over and over again? Why am I having trouble in this situation? What could help me? What do I need to know to help me move forward? And I could go on and on. I'll give you some examples of more questions, but it's just, it was really a way for me to connect with my guides and information. And some of you might be thinking, well, I already have a good sense of my intuition, and I kind of already feel like I'm connected with my guides, but it really just tunes you in even more and gives you a lot more information. And there's it's kind of like I say in my class, it's kind of like when you're taking a walk at night and you can kind of peek in somebody's house and see what kind of furniture they might have or the wallpaper, but it isn't until you go on that walk and get inside of their house, like their open house, I'm trying to say, and you go inside, you can really get a feel for like feeling the carpet underneath your feet. You get a sense of everything and all of the things about it, and that's what it is when you go into the records. Everything is just turned up. Your insight, your intuition, the information that you get is just more. It's better. And so when I'm having blending it with my mediumship, or when I'm blending it with my writing or things like that, I just feel like I'm that much more tuned in, and I'm getting better information about things. And yeah, so these are the kinds of questions. And so the podcast I was listening to in this green section down here, it was called Align Within. That is it. These are some resources that I used to go into the records. I'll give you some more examples in a minute of how I've used the records. But her name is Ashley. She's gotten married, so her name is different. But she is someone who really spoke a lot about the Akashic Records and what they were all about. So when you open up this prayer, a lot of people imagine themselves going into this library. You may have heard Edgar Casey. He was someone who did this a lot, and he dealt with a lot of healing, and his sessions are recorded. And he just envisioned going up into this higher realm. So a lot of people use meditation to go in, visualizing this library and seeing these beings called librarians who are there protecting these sacred books or the sacred information. So that you can, so that it's protected and you can go in there. Yeah, Linda Howe also has a great book on how to read the Akashic Records. You can get that online. And she also has one with a lot of exercises in it, practice books. That's very helpful as well. Let me just go down to this next page. Does anybody have any questions so far? I know I'm going really fast. Okay. Let me tell you.
What is the title of the book again and the author? Could you?
Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong thing. It is the Akashic How to Read the Akashic Records, and it's by Linda Howe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure Giles will be putting a link to it in the chat any minute.
Okay. This is not in the way I had planned, but that's okay. I'm trying to get the next page.
Nancy, in the chat, Daisy is asking if you could read or say the prayer. Is that?
I will, absolutely, yeah. All right, yeah, let me do that first, and then I'll go into what it's all about. So I wonder if you'll see it. Okay, can you see the prayer now, or do you still see my different?
You can see it.
Okay, perfect. So Linda Howe, she's the one I started with, and so she's the one I use. And I also use Ashley's, and I also use my own. And there's so many prayers that you can find, but the prayer basically is stating your intention, and then you're repeating it 3 times with people use your passport name, and it's just your official given name. And then you say that the records are open. So it's a very simple prayer. Both hers and Ashley's, and even mine is very brief, but it's just opening up these records and saying that you have the intention of going in. Now you may see that it says first name of individual being read, but because you can read other people's records. You can also read the records of a historic location. I have the school of story I have is the school that I substitute teach in is across from this beautiful little museum, and I just went across the way and opened up the Akashic Records of the land there. And excuse me, and it was really interesting, all the information that came through about the property that was there. And I had forgotten that that property, I'm in Maryland on the East Coast of the United States in this area. It was a big Quaker neighborhood, and a lot of people had come through on the Underground Railroad. In order as slaves and so forth in order to escape to freedom. And so there was a lot of energy like that. And the information that was coming through was really, really interesting. And some of it could be validated in the museum that is now on that property there. But yeah, you can read the records of a place, of your house. And it's really interesting of how many different ways you can use the Akashic Records. And at the end, you just close your records, whether you're reading for yourself or other people, to just, you know, close that loop. And so you just say the records are now closed, the records are now closed, the records are now closed. And then I do a thing with my hand, just thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's pretty much how you do it. I'm going to share some reasons. I mentioned briefly some reasons why, but I'm going to share with you some reasons of how I've used them. And yeah, hold on, let me open that. I did this for so many years teaching online, so I should be a little smoother, but I'm not. Okay, so here's some ways that you can use the Akashic Records, and you can glance through and read those. I go on the Akashic Records every day. Some people view it as a very sacred realm and don't go in and ask your guides, bother them, but mine don't seem to mind. And when I ask a question, I usually get a response. And if it's not something you're to know, you won't get an answer. You won't get much, and you can rephrase the question, but you get what you are able to know at this time, and what is for your highest good. You don't get future predictions or future information. Typically, it is not for that. It's more of understanding where you are now. And even it's not serving your ego. Like you can go in and get past life information. But if you're just asking, was I Cleopatra, or was I somebody famous? As somebody who did the other day, she's like, I just want to know who I was. And I'm like, well, that's not how this works. You have to ask, is there a past life gift that I had that I can bring into this life? Or is there something I've dealt with in past lives that I haven't resolved and can understand more in this life? So with that being said, one of the first times I went in to have my Akashic Records read, she was saying to me, you are this beautiful witch, and you were somebody, witchy type woman, and you were somebody who created all these different kind of concoctions and potions and spells for people to find happiness and love, and you just loved putting all these little things together. And I forgot, as it actually clicked with how much I remembered as a kid loving to go out in the forest and collect different things and put things together and make them. And so with that information, I then got into herbalism and foraging. I found this chef who lived nearby, and he was going into the forest during the pandemic and teaching us how to find mushrooms and berries and all these things and utilize them to make different recipes and things. So that was a way that I used a past life to help me in this life. Relationship patterns, a lot of that you can say, I'm having an issue with this woman, and I would love to find a way that we can resolve this and come out better on the other side. And I've done that. I was having an issue with a very close cousin of mine, and I went in, and the records gave me some helpful information about how to approach the situation. When I've been dealing the last year, my father's had some issues as he ages, and it came as a huge shock, a surprise in the way that it came up. And so I've gone into the records a lot and asking them how can I help myself? How can I help my father? How can I navigate the relationships with my siblings? All these different ways. And it's really been, some people are like, well, how do you know it's not just you? How do you know it's actually your guides or something like that? And I know because I remember this one instance, I was like, really in like great despair. Like it was really upsetting to me what was happening. And they said, Nancy, just imagine for a moment, what if everything went right? Like what if everything was okay? And I was like, I like, no way. Like this is going south. I'm never gonna, this is gonna just, it's just gonna devolve and go and be really awful. And they kept saying it. It was like every couple days they said, what if everything went right? And so I finally took their advice and thought, okay, what if everything does go right? Like how would this be good and bad? And you know what? Actually, things did go right. And knock on wood, he's doing really well. And seeing it from that perspective wasn't something I was open to. And it took them pestering me and reminding me to look at the positive. And I did that. And it was really beneficial. And that's how it is with the records. When you go in, you get the information that you need in that moment to really feel better and more hopeful and positive. And to get to that point where you're getting that information like that, it does take some practice. For me, it did at least. It may be easier for you, but it just is really beautiful when you are clicking and getting that information. Like I said, yeah, please ask questions. Are psychics or mediums accessing our Akashic records? That's an interesting question because now, since I've opened the Akashic Records, I was in a gang, and I promise I will get to your point to answer your question. I was going in this Akashic Record gang, and they're meeting tonight, and so I'm missing that. But we've met every 2 weeks for these past few years. And as I was answering one of the women's questions that night, she said, Nancy, you sound like my grandmother. The way you're talking just sounds like her. And I was like, oh, I'm not a medium. Like, I can't, I'm not channeling your grandmother. And she says, I actually think you are. You sound just like something she would say in the way that you're saying it. And so I looked into it. Well, the next day I ran to my mom's cemetery because I was substituting down the street as it happened. And I went and I tried to connect with her. And I don't know, I feel like I did just of certain things that happened when I went and things that popped into my mind. But how long did it take? I think the mediumship part of it was probably about 10 months later, but going into Akashic Records, I mean, I think I started I'm learning somebody's question. I think I started in March, going in April. I took a class to get better where I remember the Soul Tribe Journey podcast. I'll put that in here. They're also very helpful. That's what they call themselves. And then I just kept practicing, and I honestly didn't think I was going to keep at it. I kept adding pages and pages and pages to it, and now it's this big messy notebook of where I started. And it took, I mean, I was going in, I was getting information that was helpful maybe by September, August. It didn't take too long in the scheme of things. I'm losing my train of thought. So anyway, back to the mediums before else how I used it. I don't know. I've taught mediums in my class, and they just feel like it turns it up a notch. The information, the clarity that they get when they are in the Akashic records, giving a reading. When I give a reading to somebody, I kind of already have my Akashic records open, and I think my readings are just more powerful or stronger and more insightful. Often when I give a mediumship reading to somebody, I say I'm an Akashic Records medium, and I was frustrated in the beginning because I wasn't an evidential medium, not a trance medium. And now I see I'm Akashic Records medium because when I'm giving a reading, yes, I'm bringing their loved one, maybe, the grandmother through, but she's coming through with a message also. And it's really a little bit different than just, you get a reading, she's got blonde hair, da, 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 da. And then at the end, they give a message. It's more of a message all throughout the reading. So I can't speak for everyone if they are accessing your Akashic records. I don't know. But I do know when I do it, my sessions are just deeper and more insightful and a little bit better. So Yeah, another time I felt like I knew what I was getting. It wasn't just me, it was the Akashic Records. For sure was when my daughter, it was during the pandemic, she was college age. She was having to go away to college, and I really wanted her to stay home. She was just going to the University of Maryland down the street, and she really wanted to go to school, and I really wanted her to stay safe at home. And I went into the Akashic Records and I said, you know, which is best? Um, Going to college, you know, staying in the dorm, staying in the hotel, which was a weird option at that time, or staying here in the house. And they really laid into it. And they were like, she can stay home, but it's going to feel really isolating and like dark and gloomy and moody and and I know I would have said, you know, happy, supported, loved, you know, those would have been words I used. So I knew the information that I was getting from the records was probably not, definitely not what I was giving. It was more helpful. And she did end up living on campus, and it was just as they said it was going to be very positive, nurturing, loving, and expansive for her rather than staying at home. Um, I know I'm going through a lot of this. I just want to bring up, I know I don't want to talk too long. I'm going to kind of close it a little bit. And then if you have questions, but you can go in for our art. I have an Akashic Records art group. And so you can do painting. You can ask a question and then have it come through in your watercolors or in coloring. I do a lot with I did a lot with poetry in the beginning. And I just, you know, started letting the words flow as after I opened up the Akashic Records. So there's all different ways to do it and utilize it, and there's so much more to talk about it, but I don't want to use up all the time um, because I don't know how long I have. But if you have questions, feel free to ask me, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Well, we're
Uh,
here for another half hour.
oh, all right, then I can keep going.
You can keep talking.
All right, good. All right, I didn't know how much time I have. All right, so I'm trying to I'm trying to like get to the next page of my okay. I'll show you this. Well, I'm not gonna show that was just Ashley Wood's prayer. Okay, I'm gonna get to some questions that you can ask if you go into your own Akashic records. Um, these are some questions that are the types of questions that you can ask. So when I say you go into the Akashic records, it just means you're opening them up. And what I do, here's the process that I do. So in the beginning, I would do a meditation, a quiet meditation, and sometimes it was just, you know, I'm someone who has trouble just sitting still and meditating for, and especially in the beginning, I couldn't sit still to meditate for a minute. So I really needed that guided meditation to help me. And there are ones on YouTube, I'm sure you can find some that just lead you through to the Akashic records. But it can just be a simple meditation. And then you, write down your question, usually before I open the records. That's what I would do before. And then I would write it down one of these questions, like, you know, how can what intuitive message and guidance are available to me right now? Or on a typical day, I might just say, you know, what do I need to know today for my highest good? And then I will meditate, and then I just allow the messages to come through. And so in the beginning, when I first was starting, if you're just starting, this is what I would recommend. Get yourself a journal or a 3-ring binder, and then just allow yourself to see what comes through. It could be a drawing, it could be a word, it could be a sentence, and you could think this is just me saying this, but put it down and then let it go. And maybe by the time you get to the end of your paragraph or the end of the page, you're noticing that the language is different, that the words are different. And that's often how it is. The Akashic Records language will be just a lot different than yours in the way that you would normally speak. And sometimes I just will in the beginning, and oftentimes I'll get songs. You know, a song will pop into my head that I wasn't thinking of. Or maybe maybe you're somebody who's clairsentient, you'll get a feeling or that kind of energy. So just be open and sit with it for a little bit and see what comes through. The answer may not come through as you expect it would in writing. It may be just a feeling or a song. And then you can ask more questions as you can ask another question or you can ask more about that. But yeah. Um, oh, that's one kind of question you can ask. Okay. Let me get another question. There. Okay. Can you see this one? Self-discovery. So these are some other kinds of questions: career, life path, relationships. And I think I just said that, but if not, you don't want to ask yes and no questions. It's like when you have a teenager, and you ask them, did you have a good day? You're not really going to get much at all. And so if you ask questions that are, how can I do this? Or in what ways can I do this? Or can you give me the first thing I should do or the first step? That's going to give you a lot more information. Um, and if there's any of these that you want, I can share them with Sheila so she can share them with the group. I'm happy to share this information. When I first joined the Soul Tribe podcast and took their 3-day class, they gave us homework for the next several days. The first 15 days, we were supposed to sit there for 15 minutes with our records open and ask questions. And then the next 15 days, you add on 15 more minutes. So you're sitting there for 30 minutes for those next 15 days. And then the next 15 days, you add on, you guessed it, 15 more minutes. So you're sitting there for 45 minutes for those next 15 days connecting with your record. So when I say you really need to sit there and connect and practice, it really took a lot of time sitting there and doing this. And that's what I find with any spiritual development, tarot, mediumship, any of these. It takes a lot of practice and tuning in. You wouldn't expect to be able to play the cello or write a great novel. Like it takes work. All of these skills takes work and time to develop. And so if you're not getting it in the very beginning, sit with it and keep trying because it does take a connection. Your guides are trying to figure out how to connect with you, and you're trying to figure out how to connect with them as well. If you're already somebody who is already a little bit spiritual, you're into yoga, or you're somebody who knows how to read tarot and all this, then it may be a little bit easier for you to access. Certainly the people who I've done this with who are mediums already, they've had a lot easier time. But it's not to say you can't, it just takes a little more patience. Going to a place of worship, if that's where you want to connect, that's wonderful. I don't think you have to, though. I think what's most important as far as places is somewhere where you're comfortable. And I think I've learned this in the mediumship classes that I've taken as well. It sometimes builds the energy when you're in one location. Like now I do all my readings on Zoom in this right here where I am. But when I was connecting with my records, I was always in my rocking chair in my bedroom. I didn't want my husband to know what I was doing, honestly. I didn't want him to think I had lost my marbles. And so I was just telling him that I was doing meditation a lot, but I would go in the bedroom, lock the door, and sit in the rocking chair that we have in there. And I would just sit with my journal and write and connect. And that was where I did it. So if you do have one spot to do it, if you want to go to your place of worship, then go do that. Or maybe you have two places. I often will open up my Akashic Records when I walk around my favorite lake, and I feel I'm very connected there when I'm taking my walk. And I started doing this when I went to this mediumship retreat. my guides, I guess I was writing for a good 6 months, 8 months. And then I had a session where I was trading with somebody and she said, Nancy, they really want you to start speaking. And I was like, speaking, I just don't feel like I can do that. But I tried because they said to, and so I did. And then I started speaking, and that came the words. That's when it now people are like, oh my gosh, you're talking so fast, so much is coming. And it's just because it's faster and easier to say it than it would take me forever to write it down. And thank goodness Sheila has done my handwriting analysis because my handwriting is the worst, and I don't think I'd be able to read anything that I had written there, written down. So now I record it in my phone. Even I go for a walk, I hit record, or when I'm driving, I hit record. I open my records and I just start channeling the information, and that's easy for me to have it on the phone, and I don't really go back to it, but I know that it's there. I can. Um, how much do I charge for a recording? So I do my sessions. You can find me with Nancy at .com. And so that's where I do one-on-ones. And my friend Kathy and I, it's kind of fun because now it's evolved. Like I said, I do the mediumship. That still takes a lot of practice. Um, but now we do these gallery readings where it's a group of people, and so we'll spend 7 minutes. She will do evidential mediumship, and I'll do 7 minutes of an Akashic Records reading for people, and we just alternate that, which is a pretty beautiful experience. And then all the people there can take part in hearing each other's messages, and a lot of times it's interesting, even when I do it with my gang, the messages that will come through will be for all of us, or we can take some part of it. And I think that's really beautiful when that happens. I know that when I go to different circles or retreats, that a lot of us have something in common. It's like, oh, that's why we were brought together. And sometimes that really happens. You can see that when you go to a gallery reading, that the people there really needed a certain message for the group. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I do want to say a couple other ways that you can use if you have a business of some sort, you can open up the Akashic Records for your business. So instead of saying the name, you would say your business. I open up the Akashic Records of McDonald's. Not that that's your business, but I'm just saying that as an example. And you can get insight onto your business. I do that a lot, and ask them for assistance with helping me through that. And that's pretty interesting when that comes through and is helpful as well. Reading for other people, you can practice on other people, but you are never to it's ethics. You are never to open up somebody else's Akashic Records without their permission. Even with animals, I don't have any animals these days, but they say when you open up an animal's Akashic Records, you need to kind of look them in the eye and get their kind of permission. And if they walk away from you, it kind of supposed to mean that they are not interested and don't want you opening it. I don't know. I don't have a dog that I've practiced on, but I do know with people that it is just as you wouldn't open somebody else's mail or do anything like that, you don't go opening somebody else's Akashic Records without their permission. But when you do trade readings, which can be really interesting and fun if you have a friend you want to practice with, it's often easier because your mind doesn't get in the way, your ego doesn't get in the way, and you can read for other people a little bit more easily than you can for yourself. And yeah, just I know when I was first reading for somebody, it was really wild that she was somebody in Asia across the other side of the world, and I was getting information about this character Zeke. I was seeing this guy Zeke, and I was drawing a little picture of him, and I was like, it's really comfortable, and he's happy, and he's this and he's that, and like whatever the information is so long ago. But turns out her little object that she's had since childhood, that is her little like um her little thing that she cares for. His name is Zeke. And she's like, how did you know about this little character that I have? And it just was really wild that I was getting information like this that was helpful. They work Akashic Records often works, at least for me, with a lot of metaphors or analogies. And so I'll often get I'll see a certain image, and I kind of understand that somebody's like dealing with a certain situation, or this is what it feels like. Gosh, what was the one last night? It was really, oh, it was this woman, and they came through to her to talk about, I don't know, and a lot of times I don't know the things they're talking about, but they talked about this chess piece, the one that looks like the castle, and it was talking about how she feels like she has to go into a certain direction, and she doesn't feel like she's really connected with other people. But they were talking about how a whole chessboard is all a whole game, and all these pieces have to work together in order to play the game and win. And her role is like, anyway, they were using that example, and it was really spoke to her. Like she's like, God, that was a really great analogy for me to understand things. Like, it puts things in perspective. It gives me a better sense of how it is and how I operate and why it is like this. And that's how it is. It just gives you that kind of reassurance, that and that you feel. It was a lot of times people, when I give them readings, they'll be like, I already knew that. One girl was like, I already knew that. Like, so like this wasn't that great because I already knew that about myself. I'm like, well, I didn't know that about you. I don't know you at all. And I'm able to like know that this is what you needed to hear. And this was the message. Like, how's that possible? I don't know. She's like, well, I don't know. And so that's just pretty remarkable when it's something that somebody needs to hear and it makes them feel that comfort, that reassurance, or that validation that they need in that moment. So the Akashic Records, unfortunately, is not going to tell you what to do. They weren't going to tell me to send my daughter to campus. They're not going to say, this is what you must do next. Because they just don't. I sometimes wish they would. But they don't. They don't tell you what to do. And a good thing also is that they never fault you for not having done something. They may give you the best advice and you don't even do it, and you come back and ask them for help the next time again about the same thing. And they're not like, I told you what to do. Why weren't you listening? Like, they get it. They understand. And I just can't explain it. It's just really nice. And sometimes they're a little bossy, but it's never, never, never feeling like when you're being called down to the principal's office and you're getting in trouble. It is not that kind of energy. It is kind of and I work in school, so I know. I hear kids getting called down to the principal's office and they get that like nervous feeling. It's more of an energy like a guidance counselor or a coach or somebody who wants you to do well, and they just come with a little like what you need in that moment to feel a little bit better. That's kind of what the Akashic Records are. And as I keep saying, like, the best thing is you can do it for yourself, because that's what I was frustrating for me when I was going to the mediums or the tarot card reads. All these people, I was reading my own tarot, but like I was giving like some power away to these other people telling me things. And it was so empowering to be able to have this tool at my own disposal to use when I needed it, whenever I needed it, and to get that from people. And that's what's been really really beautiful about it. And trading with people, like, if you get into it, it's a great way to get like free readings, because people love to practice and get what they can from you. Like, it's a two-way street, and it's really beautiful when you can give someone something and then they feel great giving something to you back. Yeah. So I do go in my Akashic Records every day, and it has taken time to get to be like it is. And I just want to say this as well. Your style in the Akashic Records is going to be your own. You will have your own technique. And even with this, I remember I mentioned my Akashic gang, the four of us, we all have our own styles. There's one woman who's more, I don't know, more sentient, more feeling. And the imagery she gets is more, I don't know, like unicorns and clouds and like, I don't know, just more like of that kind of feeling. Whereas I'm more practical, down to earth, like that. And this other woman who's there, her guides tend to come across a little more um, strong and powerful, and like I don't know. So it's just everybody has their own different style. There are some people you will have a reading with them, and they will actually be looking like they're reading from a book. They actually see the words, and that's beautiful that they have the ability to do that. I don't see it that way. I get the messages kind of now. It's changed over the years, but it kind of now comes, um, I hear it sort of, but it also just comes, sounds weird, out my mouth, like a channel. And I can tell when I'm getting the right word, and when the word isn't right, I just can sense it, feel it. And so that's how it works for me. And like I said, the songs and the pictures. So it may come through for you. It's going to come through for you, whatever, however it works. They can find it to work with you. In my experience, that's how it's been. There was one woman who got so much detailed information that she was talking about a past life of mine that I was able to, I'm like a ancestry.com buff, and going into history of it all, I was able to find this little girl, piecing together the information that she got me of where she thought this girl had lived and what her name was, and her street, like all this information. And I found this little girl, that, maybe I was her in a past life, and a lot of I didn't get a lot of information. I mean, unfortunately, she was, you know, in the war, and it was not a happy ending. But anyway, I was able to piece together information to get this about her, and I know for a fact that this woman had no clue that I was going to be searching after all the information and getting through that. It wasn't a quick find. I had to do some digging, and it was just pretty remarkable when it came through, and it seemed, I just felt that it was the right, like it was the right link, it was the right connection, seeing this girl. Anyway, I know that sounds a little confusing, but yeah, there's just different ways that you can use it, and different ways different people style. So it's worth checking out to see how you can connect with your Akashic records.
We have some questions. While you're thinking, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you were talking about when you were writing it down, this group started with an interest and a focus on automatic writing.
Oh, okay.
So I was wondering if what you're doing is any different from other types of automatic writing. I mean, how would we know? Except, of course, I guess if you're setting the intention to open records, then that would be different than just plain old automatic writing.
Yeah, it may not be much different. With automatic writing, I guess, I don't know, like the two different. I know when I was writing, it wasn't spirit that was writing. I know with some automatic writing, that spirit takes the tool and is writing the words as you do it. When I was writing, I was cognizant. I was the one writing it. I was just writing the words that I was feeling, and knowing that I was putting pen to paper. So yeah, in that kind of way, it was, I don't know, automatic writing. So I don't know for sure, but it's worth exploring. And I think it is, for me, it's a little, it's the only way that I know, because that's where I started. I wasn't doing that sort of writing before this. That's when I got into spirituality with the Akashic Records, then with Reiki, then with mediumship, and now where I am. So I think it's worth checking out what the difference is for you and how that is. I think it would just probably, I don't know. I feel like it's a slightly different realm, with just more beings, more energy behind it. If I could say it, it just seems a little different when I don't go and, like with mediumship, I'm just comparing it with when I don't open my records, it just feels like it's not as full or surrounded by the energy. It just feels fuller when I am doing it in the records.
Okay.
I say a good exercise to do, especially for beginners. And I think Linda Howe is the one. I know the Soul Tribe podcast people did it. Before you open your records, write down your question, answer it. Answer it the way that you would answer it, or do automatic writing the way you normally do. And then do the same thing with your records open, and compare it and see how it's different. And that's a good kind of guide to see if there's any difference or any change, and maybe try that a couple different times, and notice what's different about it for you, because it's all different for each person individually. I don't think there is a standard of how. I don't know. In my experience, everybody has different experiences.
Thank you. I noticed earlier Lorraine had asked, did you say going into a place of worship makes it easier?
I
I
think
think-
she answered
Did you answer that already?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I
I think
missed it.
going someplace where you're comfortable and being consistent about it is important. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 places that you always have to go, at least in the beginning, helps to build that energy and that safety.
The reason I asked was because I thought I heard you at the beginning say you saw this temple and you went in there and but maybe I misheard what you were saying, like at the beginning of this meeting. So that's what I was thinking of. But
I was taking a walk when I heard it.
yeah, maybe I
I've
thought you
never
were.
gone in a place of worship to open
Oh,
it, but I'm not saying that you can't. I just haven't. But I have taken I don't see what works for you, and that's what I say. If you're ever opening up your records or listening to a meditation or following some teacher of it and they don't make you feel good, if they're stressing you out, if they're making you feel fearful, go away, like step away from it. And I found that with some people in the Akashic Records on YouTube, they were kind of veering towards darker. I don't just not didn't feel good. The Akashic Records should always feel positive, hopeful, supportive, never fearful, never anxious, never create more anxiety for you. If it does, find a different teacher or find a different meditation. That's important to say that as well.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Deb, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Just I've done mediumship training and sitting in the power and things like that. And it just seems like this is, Akashic Records. I've always kind of wondered, again, there's sort of the visual thing of the library and everything, but it really just sounds like it's asking your guides for guidance. It's getting quiet, sitting in, it's either sitting in the power, or sitting in peace and just asking your guides, things like, what do I need to know today? Those kinds of things. Do you see really any difference between the Akashic Records guides versus just your guides?
I feel a difference personally. I just feel like I said, like it's a little more tuned in, turned up, and just um fuller and bigger than just my typical guides. I hate to say it like that, but it just for me, it feels like more. But yeah, like I said, try it out for yourself and see how it's different for you. And maybe there is no difference. Honestly, I don't know to say yes, it definitely is, or no, it definitely isn't. Like who am I to say that? So I think you have to explore and see and come up with your own idea for yourself. But I have found that it is just a feeling that's different than just my own guides. Although my own guides are there, and like I said, I do think my loved ones do come through, people's loved ones do come through in the Akashic Records when they're open. So I don't know. I am not the be all end all Akashic Records leader in the world. And I don't want to be. I think everybody needs to make their own, what's best for them. Their own, different guys tend to work in different departments, it seems. I feel, yeah, I feel them. What is
Kate has a question and then Chasey. We'll end with Chasey.
Oh,
Kate,
great.
go ahead. Kate, where are you? Oh, where'd she go?
Here I am.
Oh, there you are. Good to see you. Go ahead.
Ooh. Oh, I'm just kind of listening, and I find the Akashic Records fascinating. So I was just kind of responding to the difference in guides. I noticed that I work as a psychic medium, so I noticed that I feel like they kind of all work in different departments. That's kind of the word that they give me. Like in a school, we have different teachers for different reasons. So it was just kind of more of a expression, if that resonates. I don't know. who knows? We don't know everything, right?
I had a little trouble hearing, but did you hear Nancy?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. A lot of I guess because I'm in the schools a lot, that I do love the school analogies because it makes it easier to understand that kind of thinking. But yeah, maybe different departments is a great way of putting it. And I think whatever guide or whatever being or loved one comes through for the message that you need to give you that help is going to come through at the time. But I don't know. I mean, maybe you can connect to your guides when you're like doing it. Like I often, if I'm doing a presentation, or doing having a conversation, I'll open up my Akashic Records beforehand, and I just feel like the words or the energy flows better. I don't know if just connecting basically with your guides in that way, because I've only come at this from knowing about the Akashic Records, that I naturally do open my Akashic Records before a big pitch or a big certain situation. And then the words just seem to come better that way. So maybe then that department comes and helps me. I don't know, but it's all experiment, right? It's a journey. It's a fun thing to just give a try because it doesn't cost anything. Maybe the price of an Audible book, which is like $1. But it's just fun to experiment with all these spiritual things, I find, and see how they can help you.
Okay, Chasey gets the last question.
Oh, great.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, yeah. I'm confused in that I thought the Akashic Records was a book with, for lack of a better word, that had the history of all the lives that you've lived, all the lessons that you've learned, all the people that you've loved. It's your history going back umpty personalities that you have
Yes.
lived. I'm getting a different picture of the kind of information you're getting from the book. Um, and so now I'm confused as to what kind of volume we got here.
I love the way you express that though, because yes, that is, and maybe I didn't do a great job in the beginning of explaining that, but yeah, it's all your experiences in this life, all your lives in this book. Yes. Yes. So I
Okay.
think so I guess not the issue, the thing is how you choose to utilize this information. So I guess for me, I've used it more of a personal way in helping me for my day-to-day and my relationships and understanding things. There's people who use it more for healing. Edgar Casey was one who was going in the records to utilize it in that way. Past lives, I go in there, or for people when they would like more insight into that. So I believe all the information is there. It's very vast. And so it's just a matter of how you choose to use it, what pieces you're going to use of this book of you.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Nancy. I think this was the largest group we've had. We've had 3 who had to leave, but at one point we had 34, and that was the largest
Wow.
group that we have had so far. Let me turn off the